Hi everyone, my name is Mia and I'm a Youth Ambassador at the Social Enterprise Attentive. Today I'm joined with Habiba and Adil, and they are two more recent players with chess, and we're also joined by our mentor Montel, who's going to be teaching us some more about the basics today. So I'll hand it over to Montel.
Hi, how's everybody?
Good, thank
Very
you.
well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so Habiba, you've only had one introduction. Still very
Yes.
new to you.
Sorry?
It's still very new to you.
Very new.
Excellent. Okay, and Adil, your first time.
First time learning, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is to ask Mia if she could first of all talk about how the board is set up. Mia, over to you.
So I believe that you need to have A1 is in the bottom left corner. And it starts with the first piece that's in A1 is the rook. People call it the castle because it looks like a castle. That's the rook, and next to that is the knight. Some people call it a horse. Next to that is bishop, and then I believe it's the queen. That's not the king, that's the queen, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you have the king, and then the bishop, the knight, and the rook, because it needs to be replicated on the other side. And then above that, you've got all of your pawn pieces, and you'll have, how many are there? 8 of those. Above each piece.
And Habiba,
Yes.
how do you know what squares the king and queen go on? Do you know? Can you remember?
So if you're if you have the white pieces, then your queen goes on the white square, and if you have the black pieces, your queen goes in the black square.
Well done. Perfect. Excellent. Okay. Any questions, Adil?
No, so I'm just learning the names of the pieces that Mia said and then what Habiba just said. So I'm just going to try to memorize and take it in.
Excellent. And we're going to keep going over these so you will get to know them. And then once you've done that, Mia, what's the next thing that you've done once you've checked your own pieces?
You need to make sure that your opponent's got theirs in the right place as well, like make sure that it's all set out right and that their queen's on the right side and stuff like that.
Excellent. And if you find that they've done a mistake and they've put either a knight and bishop in the wrong place, which is very common, or the king and the queen is in the wrong place and you started, or you have to void the game. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the pieces. Now we'll go over to the pawn to begin with. Mia, how does the pawn move?
So if it's their first move, they can move forward 2 squares, but for every other move, they can only move forward once, but they have to attack diagonally.
Okay. And how many is the pawn worth?
It's only worth 1, I think.
Correct. Excellent. Now, if they keep moving forward and they get to the other end of the board, what happens?
You can do something called pawn promotion. So if you can move a pawn all the way up to the very top of the board, you can promote it to another piece. So you can promote it to a queen, a bishop, a knight, or a rook. But I think people don't tend to go for. I don't think people tend to go for rooks, do they? It's normally the queen or the knight.
Yeah, queen or the knight that they go for, yes. Almost always the queen, and you'll find out why in a moment. Next piece, Mia.
So the rook can move as many squares as it likes, but it can only go horizontally or vertically as long as there's nothing blocking it. So like say if it was like where it's placed right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 above it, but say if there was a piece on the third one, it could only go up twice, if that makes sense.
Right.
It can't jump a piece.
Any questions on that, Habiba?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. Habiba, can you tell us about this one? The knight.
So the knight can move the way it moves kind of like in a pattern. So it can move 2 sideways and 1 up, or 1 sideways and 2 up, or 2 sideways and 1 down, or 1 sideways and 2 down. So if you see on the board, it can show you it shows you 8 potential squares that the knight could end up in, depending on which route you take.
So it moves in like an L shape, as the Habiba was saying. So it would move 2 and then 1 there, or 2 and then 1 there, or 1 and then 2 here. which is what Abiba's saying.
So it can move 3 squares in total.
Yes. The other thing is, how much is the castle worth, Habiba?
5.
Well done. And Abiba, how much is the knight worth?
The knight is 3.
Well done. Excellent. Mia, what's this piece?
So this is a bishop, and the bishop can once again move as many squares as it likes as long as it's not been blocked, but it can only go in a diagonal direction. In any direction, it can go up, down, left or right as long as it's diagonal and there's not anything blocking it.
Excellent. And then what about the queen, Habiba?
So the queen can go up, down, left, right and diagonal as long as there's nothing blocking it. So it has the most trajectory out of all of the other pieces, and it's worth 9.
Well done.
I believe. And then I think we had the bishop, and the bishop was, you said it was 3.5, but a lot of people would just say 3.
Yes. Now the
But it's
reason,
actually 3.5.
the reason for that difference is in most chess books and manuals, they call it 3. But when masters and grandmasters play, they call it 3.5, because grandmasters, masters and computers always value a bishop more because it can control more squares. The maximum a knight can perhaps move on to, as Abiba said, is up to 8. How many can a bishop potentially move on to?
11.
11. So that's more. Okay, so it's got more value because it can go for more. And if there's a potential exchange, they will always use a knight to capture a bishop, but they'll only ever use a bishop to capture a knight if it's like something called a gambit, or it would give you a better position overall. Sometimes you might use a more valuable piece to capture a small piece if you're doing it tactically, or you might just have made a mistake. But that's why we have to be very much aware of what the values are of each piece. Mia, how does a king move?
So it can move in any direction it likes, but it can only move 1 square at a time. So it could move 1 square up, down, left, right, or diagonally.
Excellent. And what are other rules to do with a king?
So the king, it's kind of priceless, like, because obviously it's like the most important piece on the board. So that's kind of its value, and you can't have 2 kings meet either. There needs to be at least a square between them. They can't come next to each other.
Excellent. What else to do with a king?
The king can't move into check because that's obviously going to end the game for them. So if they've been put into check, they need to move out of it if they can, or they block it if they can with another piece that can defend it, or they can use the king to take the piece that is putting them in check, or use another piece to take that one. So it needs to just avoid it at all costs because it's the most valuable piece.
Can I ask a question about this?
Of course.
So when the king is in check and it doesn't get out of check, and then the opponent takes your king, is the game over then?
Yeah, go checkmate.
Okay. So that's checkmate. Okay, I was just making sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. What's this? Abiba, can you remember what this is?
Yeah, so this is castling. So it's when you can switch your rook and your king piece and move it onto the other side. So if there's, like, it's shown here, and that's all I remember.
Yeah, okay. And then that's really good. Mia, can you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, when we've been playing sort of like proper games, when I was playing against Chanel, I do try to get into the habit of castling. It's quite a handy tip because it's basically, it's a way of defending your king and kind of putting it in a corner so that it's less accessible by your opponent's pieces. So in the position it was in now, if you were to castle on the king's side, you'd move your rook twice and then swap it with your king.
Yeah, but you always do it the other way round. King's vice first, and then you swap it.
Yeah.
So where would the rook and the king end up?
So the king here, in fact, I'll show you here. Look, like that.
Okay.
So the
Castle.
castle here, that's called the king side castle, and that's called the queen side castle. So you can see here, they can castle on either side. Now, there's 3 conditions. The first condition is if it's the king's first move. If you move the king, you can't castle. Second condition, you've moved these pieces out of the way. Okay. And third is that the king won't be in check. If you meet those 3, then you can castle. A king side castle, which is on the right-hand side, will look like that. So it moves over twice, and then the rook moves behind it. And the reason why you have to move the king first is because if you try to do it on like a computer, or you try to do it in a professional game and you move the rook first, okay, then you won't be allowed to castle. It won't let you. Okay.
Do you castle in one move?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the only time in the game that you can move 2 pieces, and that's why people like to do. So that's a king side castle, and that's a queen side castle. So you move 2 places here, and then the castle goes on the other side of it. Okay. Mia, do you remember en passant?
Briefly, like I have it written down, so I'm going to go back to my notes because I know it means you shall not pass.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly. I have written down if a pawn advances, take it if the opponent moves their pawn twice. But I can never make sense of why I wrote it down like that. So I might need it to be re-explained.
I'll explain that to you in 1 second. But first of all, Abiba, I assume you can't remember this either, can you?
I can kind of remember. So you can move your pawn to the diagonal square, like the diagonal to the left or the right, and it's like a defense to protect like the queen, I think.
Sort of. So basically, normally, you take on the diagonal, as you're saying. Okay, that's absolutely correct. But as Mia said, and you actually said it correct.
Cool.
Normally, the pawns can move once or twice, can't they? All the way up. Okay. Now, if black on this side decided to move their pawns, they can move this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 they can move forward twice. Okay, no problem. This one here, the one by the knight, they can only move forward once because the pawn's in the way. Okay. Now these 2, the one by the rook's pawn or the bishop's pawn, they can move that once, and if they moved it once, on white's next move it can take, can't it? Can you take diagonal? Yeah. If they move it twice, then white would have the option of doing a move called en passant. Because even though
I think I remember now.
Even though it's technically here and that's technically here, en passant, you'll take it as if it only moved once. So if you move it twice, then white can take it by taking diagonal, and it would move here, and the black pawn would come off the board. Does that make sense to you, Mia?
Yeah, I think, yeah. It's just kind of like it's another way of attacking, isn't it?
Yes.
The pawn.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Neil, any questions on that so far?
Just trying to understand all the pieces and what pieces can move where and what pieces are more valuable in terms of points and stuff like that. Trying to understand the aim of the game by listening to what you guys are saying. Yeah, it's when you first look at it, it looks like a lot to take in, but I'm trying to just look how you guys are explaining and try to sort of retain information that way.
Brilliant. Okay, so here's an example. The bishop's pawn is moved forward twice. So if I'm white, okay, on my next go, I can either choose to do en passant, and I would take it here, which would look like this. Okay. Or if I choose to move a different piece, I can no longer do en passant on my next move. Okay, you can only do it once on that particular pawn. Okay.
So is the aim of the can I just ask, is the aim of the game to get your king?
The aim of the game is to capture the opponent's king.
Okay, so you got all those other pieces protecting your king.
Yeah,
And
or
you
attacking on both from protecting and attacking. And
okay.
that's a good thing that you say that actually, because the way I always say it to people when I explain it is, it's like an army. You are attacking and defending. A lot of people, most people, when they learn to play chess, they play to defend.
Yeah.
And like even our colleague Shinoa plays to defend. That's like going into a boxing ring only to defend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Montel's quite an aggressive chess player.
Mm.
He's aggressive.
Yeah, very.
He's very like, when you start a chess game, a lot of people stay neutral or go straight for defense, but Montel goes straight for offense.
Yes, always.
Confident.
Yeah. Now that's why I used to win so many games, and is why I became quite well known. Because all I was interested in is how to win. It's a bit like in football. If all you're interested in is setting up your team to score more goals than your opponents, what's going to happen?
You're gonna win.
You're going to win, right? And then you'll be
Rather than just blocking all of their strikes.
Well, in terms of what I'll be teaching you is to do both. So you will be attacking and defending. But my emphasis is always on attack. Because, yeah, you can try to defend, but they'll get you eventually. It's a bit like going to the boxing ring, doing that. Go on your face, and that's what you're going to do. You won't really get very far, will you?
No.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about check. Mia, what is? Can you explain what is happening here?
Yeah. So if you were to put, a piece put the king in check, it basically means that you're like one move away from checkmate, which is winning the game. So there is a piece that is actively attacking the king. So the king needs to do one of the three options, which is to get another piece to defend it, to move out of it, or to take the piece, I think.
Yes, and so what Mia just said, in this position, Habiba, what can white do to get out of check?
What can white do to get out of check?
Yes.
So white can move